Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Zoning Board of the Adjustments work session of August the 12th, 2026. It's 5:30 p.m. All the members have been sworn in, and I call the meeting to order. Claudia, has anybody signed up to speak?
Madam Chair, we're about to get the sign-in sheet. I don't think that, Madam Chair, there is no speakers. Please
Thank you.
proceed.
Legal counsel advice. We have requested that the board legal counsel give us information regarding our roles, the rules, the jurisdictions, and the process of the boards. Julie Fort, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. This evening, we are going to go over three things. We're going to go over the requirements for a special exception to have a carport, the requirements to be able to receive a variance, and then because of the fun we had last meeting, we'll review some motions and guide and help provide a summary of that. If you have any questions as I'm going through it, don't hesitate to interrupt and ask. So you have the three sheets in front of you. The first one I'm going to talk about is the special exceptions for a carport. So I want to go back to the very basics, and that is, what does special exception mean? A special exception does not mean that the rules completely prohibit something as being illegal. A special exception means that the city council decided this may be okay sometimes if certain criteria are met, and then it is up to this board to decide whether or not the criteria are met in order for the applicant to receive the special exception for the carport. So you will see there is a list. This list of 7 items is taken directly from the city's code. Each of these 7 items are listed in there. And in order for the special exception to be approved and allow the applicant to have the carport, you are supposed to determine that all 7 of the items are met. So they need to meet everything. And staff, you see the staff reports that you receive. Staff will complete the chart and put whether they believe it complies or not. That is based on the information they receive from the applicant and what they have at the time the report is put together. It is not always, but it is certainly possible that during a public hearing on the item, new information will be provided to you all that staff did not previously have. And that's okay. That's what public hearings are for, is for members of the public and or the applicant to provide additional information to you for you to consider. And so you are quasi-judicial, so you all are essentially performing the role of the judges, and each of you can make your own determination of whether or not you believe all 7 items have been met. Reasonable minds may differ and reach a different conclusion. That's why not all votes are unanimous, and that's okay too. And so let's just go through these 7 items. One is that the carport must be at least 10 feet from the front property line. Staff will give you the measurements that are available when they put the packet together so that you know whether or not the carport carport is more than 10 feet from the property line. There are standards for carports, so whether or not the proposed carport, or if, someone built it first and went in reverse order, an existing carport meets those standards, that is number 2. Number 3 is a list of 3 items, and they have to show that they meet at least one of those 3 bullet points under number 3. They do not have to meet all of them. Number 4 is there's no improved alley to provide rear access. Number 5 is whether or not there is enough space for a driveway to go beside the house to get to the rear, so that there could be parking in the rear. Did I just skip number 5? Is it? Oh, okay. Thank you. So access to the rear yard. There's not adequate. Number 6, there's not adequate width on the side of the home behind the front building line, which is usually the front plane of the house. And then the size, the height, and the location of the carport won't have a negative impact on the neighbors and the surrounding property owners. And sometimes at the public hearing, you may hear from those adjacent property owners who say, I don't feel like this negatively impacts me, or they may say they feel like it negatively impacts them, and or they may provide written comments ahead of time to staff and not actually appear at the public hearing. So based on the information presented to you during the meeting, you should be looking at this list and deciding, do you feel all 7 of these criterias are met? If you conclude they are, and someone makes a motion to approve it, you would vote yes. I'm kind of jumping forward a little bit on motions. If someone makes a motion to deny it and you agree not all 7 are met, then you would vote yes. And we'll talk about the motions a little bit more in a few minutes, but are there any questions about the special exception requirements for carports?
Can I expand on?
I would like to have a clarification on number 5, and that is, if there's adequate space, it's not how that space is utilized, it's is there adequate space? Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And then, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right.
I can expand on that if you want, though, but I drafted these, so I kind of know what I was thinking. That the thought was, when we say adequate space, and it's more like, is there enough room, like a lane width, for a car to go through, or carport structure, in the case of number 6, to be, and is there another alternative other than being within the front setback? So that's what we're looking for. So when we use the word adequate, a lane can be anywhere from 8 feet to 10 feet to 12 feet, and that would be for y'all's ability to determine that, whether a car or, a car can drive back and park in the back, or if there's enough room for a carport on the side. So that was the thought when we were doing those regulations.
So an 8-foot is a car lane.
An 8-foot would be very narrow, but for a small car, it could get through, but that would be something, for y'all to think about as well.
I think the average width of a parking space is 9 feet.
Right.
Yeah.
But if they're just driving through and not parking, it's doable, but it's very narrow.
Yeah. You don't need to open the doors to drive through. Like in a parking spot, there has to be room for the doors. Yeah.
I want to expand, if I could, Chair, on number 3. So we wanted to make sure there were some allowances for different scenarios without putting in the typical 2-car garage, because everybody has a 2-car garage. And so we wanted to make sure that there was some uniqueness to some of the criteria. So the first one, and the main, the key word here is the originally built. So the primary dwelling was originally built with a one-car, no garage. Often those are closed, have been already converted. They're typically smaller houses, post-war houses, where they've converted the garage for more living space, and therefore that kind of has pushed the car out of the driveway. So that was a thought there. And when we say originally, the garage may not be there anymore, the garage may be enclosed, whatever the case may be, but originally is the key word there. Whether there's other legally permitted or non-conforming carports in the block space, a lot of discussion we've had the past few years with council is, that's what they've said, is are there any other on the block face? Basically, are there already encroachments into the setback that have already kind of, ruined, for lack of a better word, that front view shed? And so that was the thought when we determined that, is if there are already others on the block face, which means that side of the street, then this one might not have as much of a negative impact as if it was the first one. And the last one, of course, the Planning and Zoning Commission wanted to make sure that we thought about, if there was any type of disability need. The issue with disability is it's very unique to the tenant at the time. And so once the tenant leaves, now you have a permanent structure, and the disabled person may or may not be there. The future person could be, of course, but that is something that was important to the Planning and Zoning Commission to add. So I wanted to expand on the thought process on those.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I've got a question, Jocelyn. So on the second bullet, to me, the key phrase there is that encroach into the front setback. So there may be some other carports that are not within, so that it's encroaching into the front setback.
Yeah,
For me, that's what I see that helps me really understand that one.
Right, because the only reason you'll see a special exception is when they encroach into the front setback. So if there are any others down the street that may be on the side, or, maybe if the front setback is say 25 feet or 30 feet, and they're further back, even though in the house may be further back than that. I mean, there's all kinds of weird scenarios that we get, especially on bigger lots. But yes, that is the question. If it's into the front setback, and therefore if it's into that view shed that we're trying to protect.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions on carports or the special exception standards? All right. Thank you. All right, so next we are going to talk about variances. Variances are different from special exceptions. A variance is something that can be granted when it just doesn't make sense to follow the rules. It creates an unnecessary hardship. And so it's allowing some flexibility for a property owner when compliance just isn't going to work. This checklist is different from special exceptions in that not all of them have to be met. They are just things that state law says you should take into account in making your decision. And so you hear unnecessary hardship a lot, and the question is, what does that mean? And we're gonna talk about that. But we'll go through this list. I think probably the most common type of variance you get is for an encroachment into a side or rear yard. We've seen a case in the front yard. There are certainly other types of variances, but that is certainly the most common. So first, the variance being requested can't be contrary to the public interest. The ordinances that have been adopted by the council exist for the good of the public as a whole, right? And so as long as that public good can still be maintained, then it's okay to determine that something is not contrary to the public interest. The next item down, literal enforcement would result in unnecessary hardship. And then the third one, the spirit of the ordinance is observed such that substantial justice is done. And that is something where, like, if somebody just literally,
Excuse me, we're having a hearing and we need the phones off, all right?
okay, so after you get through the first 3 blocks there, the remaining 5 items are what state law says you can take into account in deciding whether an unnecessary hardship exists. And so the first one is the cost to comply with the city's code would exceed more than 50% of the appraised value of the structure. Any questions on that? I mean, that's typically straightforward. You use the value given on the tax rolls, not by a private appraiser or other sources for appraising or valuing real property. The next,
Julie, I've got a question on that one.
Yes, sir.
So the structure that we're talking about, so we're talking about a storage building, for instance, that's encroaching. It's the value of just the storage building?
yes,
Okay. And if there's not an appraised value for it, then I guess this particular line item really we can't do anything with it.
that would be correct.
Okay.
Yes. And that's an example of why they don't have to meet all of them. They're just things to take into account. The second item for determining whether you feel unnecessary hardship exists is that compliance would result in a loss on the lot on which the structure is located of at least 25% of the area on which development may occur. And so basically, this can be that an ordinance makes a quarter of the lot unusable for some reason, and that's the reason they're not able to comply with the standards and need a variance. The next one is always interesting, and that is if they comply with one ordinance, in order to comply with the ordinance, they have to violate another ordinance. Like, they just cannot physically comply with both ordinances, right? It's only possible to meet one. You can also look at whether the compliance would result in unreasonable encroachment on an adjacent property or within an easement. With easements, if someone's requesting an improved patio, there may be utility easements or other things running along the back or front or side of the lot that could interfere with those utilities. That is something you're allowed to take into account. Or, if it won't interfere, then perhaps you would find that they meet that requirement. And then the last thing you can take into account is whether the city deems the structure to be a non-conforming structure. And what that means is the structure is lawful. Non-conforming is not a synonym for illegal. A non-conforming structure is lawful. It simply means that when it was built, it did comply with all of the rules. And since construction, the rules have now changed, and they no longer comply with the rules, but they do not have to do a remodel or construction to comply with the new rules because they met the rules when they were built. So they're considered non-conforming. So that is another factor you can take into account. This is another evaluation where reasonable minds can differ. You're not all required to reach the same conclusion on whether you feel enough or one of these criteria have been shown in order to determine that there is an unnecessary hardship. Still, the spirit of the ordinance is observed and that substantial justice is done for the property owner and for the public at large. All right. Any questions on variances? All right. Jocelyn, anything to add? Okay. I didn't write that. Okay, so Board of Adjustment motions and voting guide. Hopefully this will help you all. I'm going to talk about these. So after you have a public hearing, whether it's a variance, a special exception, or the other type of case you can hear, an appeal of an administrative decision, any of you who are here serving in a voting capacity can make a motion to approve the item, or you can make a motion to deny the item. When you make a motion to approve the item, that means you are in support of the applicant's request and believe that the applicant's request should be granted, meaning they will receive the variance or they will be allowed to have the carport. So if you agree with that, then you would vote in favor of a motion to approve. If you do not agree that the variance should be given or that the carport should be built, then you would vote against the motion to approve. Does that make sense to everybody? And when you vote on those motions, it does take 4 out of 5 in order for it to pass. So even though 3 is a majority, 3 is not enough votes in favor in order for someone to receive a special exception or to receive a variance. And that is why the alternates on this board are important, because in fairness, there should be 5 people here in voting, because if there's only 4, then the applicant has to get a unanimous vote. And if only 3 come, that is a majority, and that's a quorum, and you can call the meeting to the order, but nothing could be passed because there aren't 4 people here who could potentially vote in favor of it. On the flip side of that, if you believe that a variance should not be granted or that the carport should not be allowed, then you could make a motion to deny the applicant's request. And when you go to vote, if you agree with the motion that you want to deny the request and not allow the variance or the carport, you vote in favor of the motion to deny. If you think it should be allowed, then you would vote against the motion to deny. Any questions on that?
It's a little tricky, but I understand it.
Okay, yes. So we saw this last time. You can have a motion to postpone. Maybe an applicant requests more time or wants to be able to bring back additional information to you, or the applicant has notified staff before the meeting that for some reason they're not able to attend, illness, whatever the case may be, and they've sent an email or something in writing asking for you to consider postponement. In that case, if someone wants to make a motion to postpone, then you may do so. And if you vote in favor of that motion, then you are agreeing that this can come back at a future meeting. If you don't want it to come back, then you would vote against the motion to postpone.
How many times can it be postponed?
There's no limit. When you postpone, if the public hearing has been opened, and you're going to continue with the public hearing after the postponement, if you include in your motion the specific date and time that you are postponing to, then the notices don't have to be resent, because during the public hearing that was noticed, you are announcing, we're going to take this up again on a specific date and time. If you just do a general postponement without a date and time, then staff will redo the notices. I don't know how that works with the application fees and things like that, but that's more administrative than what you all have to really need to worry about.
Can I expand on his statement too?
Of course.
So often, not often, sometimes what you'll see are people who have had a visit from code compliance, and they are here because they've built something that is too close, too high, whatever it might be. It's not unusual for people to continue to postpone. They'll come and they'll say, I need to postpone, I'll postpone again, and just basically kick the can down the road in order to delay getting a vote, especially if they know it might not pass. And that way they're able to keep whatever structure, because as long as they're in the process, the code compliance is going to, stay away. Now, once a decision is made, then code compliance will make sure that decision is upheld. So if someone continues to postpone 2, 3, 4 times, whatever, then it's your decision. If you're like, okay, we're done doing this postponements, we're going to now make a recommendation, not a recommendation, we're going to make a motion, and we're going to end this one way or the other. So that will be your call, how many times you want to postpone, but you also want to understand the context of it as well.
Yeah, and at some point, if you get far enough out from the original notices, from a legal perspective, I'm going to be saying that notices need to be redone. It's been too long. This is not fair to the surrounding property owners who received that notice, for them to be expected to know that the notice they got 6 months ago, for a date and time back then, that the case is still going on. So there's no hard and fast rule on that. And like Jocelyn said, that will be up to you all.
I have a quick clarification question. If we don't know when the next meeting is, when we're making our motion, can we just say to the next available Board of Adjustment meeting? I mean, usually staff's going to know, but if might not have a calendar in front of me, so I might not know.
We'll help you with that. Your standing meeting is the second Wednesday. And, you could postpone something, and it could be the only case, whatever it might be. But we will give you the next Wednesday date. So you may say whatever the next meeting is, and that'll be our responsibility to quickly pull up our calendars and say, this is the date.
Okay.
So the last type of motion we're going to talk about are motions to reconsider. They don't happen often. They did happen last time. And that is after there has been a vote, if someone wants to make a motion to reconsider the item, then they may do so. Requires a second and a vote. If you want to reconsider the item, you would vote in favor of a motion to reconsider. If you don't think the item should be reconsidered, then you would vote against that motion to reconsider. And and if the motion to reconsider is spurred by the applicant, that's up to you all. Nobody is required to make a motion to reconsider. Or if you felt like, oh, wait, I didn't understand one of the facts, and now, the light bulb's just gone on, and I would vote different now, then maybe you would make a motion to reconsider. But hopefully you get all your questions answered before the initial vote.
Another processing question. Do we need 4 to pass a motion to reconsider?
No,
That's a 3.
that's a 3.
That's a 3.
Yes, so your other other motions, a motion to table or a motion to postpone is only 3 votes. Basically, pretty much any motion except a motion to approve a case being presented to you is going to be 3 out of 5. Your cases are going to be 4 out of 5. Because to your point, 3 is a majority of the 5. All right. And I
Do
think
we have any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes,
So,
sir.
Are the applicants aware of all of these criteria? Or do they need to be aware of all the criteria for a special exception?
Yes, and actually Claudia and Gina may be better to discuss this because they meet with the applicants when they apply. But they'll come up to the desk and they're given the ordinance, they're given, especially with the special exceptions, they understand the criteria. And do you want to expand on that a little bit?
Sure. We do go over the list with them when they come in to the best of our abilities. Sometimes their plans are not very complete when they first turn them in. Sometimes we don't have adequate dimensions. We don't have a drawing that shows whether or not there's an alley. So sometimes we have to accept it initially and work through some of those issues. Ideally, they're supposed to have it all figured out and tied down when they do turn in that application, though.
So ideally, a person who is requesting a special exception has already met all of these.
Yeah, ideally, their application is going to show that they meet them all, yes.
And it's not, especially when this was first adopted, there were a lot of people, especially if they had 2-car garages, and they didn't meet any of the other criteria, they were essentially told this can't be approved because they have to meet all of numbers 1 through 7. And if they came with a 2-car garage or some other thing, we would tell them that this is something that is not approvable. So there are some cases, some people out there that wanted the carport and did not even go through the process for that reason. So, like the one that we had that's actually requested postponing it again tonight, we only saw some of these things as we were looking closer onto the aerial on the property, looking at his site plan, understanding some of the different buildings that were on there. So it took us evaluating to really understand whether they met or not. But ideally, you wouldn't see any that do meet because hopefully we have already filtered those through, but that won't always be the case.
And just another example I can provide for that, we had a case a few months ago that came in. They had filled out the form, but throughout the review process and the discussion, we realized they did have an alley in the back and that it was improved and that they did have gate access. So we explained to them, now knowing this, you really shouldn't move forward with this case. And they agreed and they withdrew it. And they said they would consider options for putting the carport in the backyard instead.
I will clarify one thing. Obviously, there are a few, very loud, of those 7 items that are your discretion, right? That you get to evaluate, and as Julie said, reasonable minds may differ. And so it's not like a building permit where you come in and check off every single box, and then you automatically get your building permit. Here, there are some things for you to evaluate and consider. You have your list to go through, so you have guidance for that. But it's not something that staff can approve administratively, obviously.
All right. Any other questions before we relocate?
Yes, I do. It's more of a clarification question that I have. I don't know if I can term it as right or wrong, but still I'll ask. So let's say I want to make a carport, right? Build one. What's the right way? Should I come to the city and tell them that, hey, I want to build this carport, it wasn't there, can I get permission? The city goes, yes, no worries, so I build it, we're done. The city goes, no, you can't do it. And here is the reason, right? So I disagree with that. Or I say, you know what, come on, guys, just a little bit here and there, you can do it. Well, no. Well, then I come to the board ask for the variance or exception, right? And then whatever happens, right? Is that the right way to do things, or is it like, I just feel like building that carport, I just do it, you know?
Well.
And then someday somebody goes past my house and then looks at my carport and goes, this Shubo guy didn't have it before, like a month ago. Where did this guy come, where did this carport come from? They stop, take pictures, whatever, and next day I get a notice, hey, show up, explain where you get this from. And then I'm like, well, guess what? All excuses come out. And then I come to the board because the city's going to say that, hey, you're not supposed to do this. Why did you do it? And then I come to the board asking for exception. So which is the right way, if there is a right way?
The ordinances do require that the property owner come in and obtain a building permit for their carport before they begin construction. And there's a lot of reasons for that. If it would not be possible to have a lawful carport on their lot, then they can be told that up front, and it saves them the expense of building a carport that they may later have to tear down. Or say the carport is just 1 foot too long, staff can tell them, look, if you can make it a foot shorter, you'll meet the requirements and you can have your permit. And so it's not building permits, they're for public safety, but they're not meant to be an impediment to lawful construction. They're meant to also help people before they incur the cost to be able to know that they're doing it right and they're going to be able to keep the carport after it's been constructed.
Cool. So just to follow up on that. So would my assumption or understanding be correct if I say that Shubo, you already committed a mistake, now you're in front of the board asking for, like, please let me go. I committed the mistake, please let me know. Would that be a correct assumption or understanding, or?
Well, if their carport meets all 7 of these special exception requirements, then you can decide to allow them to keep it. I think it gets permitted after the special exception is approved. Is that right? Yeah. So the process is kind of done in reverse in that instance, which is not how it's designed to be done.
There you go.
Yes.
All right. Thank you.
You're
Just wanted to
welcome.
get that cleared out. Thank you.
If there are no other questions, we need to adjourn and move to the council room to start up again. The meeting's adjourned at 6:10.